So today I'm going to talk to you about doing good with data from a social psychological perspective. And that means I'm asking, how can we influence and change behaviors with our data visualizations? So a little bit about me. I am a social psychologist by training, as Emily said. And the reason I became a social psychologist is because of one particular book written by one particular person. And let's see. Oh, give me one second here. Right. So the book is The Social Animal. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this book before, but it was assigned to me in a social psychology class that I took in college. And when I started reading it, I just couldn't put it down. It was fascinating to me. It was telling me all the secrets about why we think and feel and do what we do, and how our thoughts and feelings and behaviors are influenced by others, friends and family, for example, the media. And the author of the book, Elliot Aronson, he's pictured here. He's just a fabulous writer. And so if you wanted a little introduction into the field of social psychology, I do recommend that you take a look at it. So because I'm a social psychologist, my interests are in changing behavior through data visualization. And when I started to first get introduced into the field of data visualization, that's what I was looking for. I thought maybe there must be research on this. Why else would we be creating data visualizations if our intention was not to try to inform people and make changes in the world? So I'd searched and searched for research or people talking about this topic, and I was just coming up short. This was one of the few blog posts actually that spoke to this topic in particular. So we'll come back to this. I'll tell you what they said in the blog post and what they did here. But when I think about my own behaviors, I just think it's a nice example that a lot of you can probably relate to. I know that data influences my behaviors. And a nice example of that is anytime I go onto Amazon, if I'm thinking about buying a particular book, I will look at the data of how people have rated that book, and I will reference that data in my decisions. So for example, here's a nice bar chart that shows the ratings that people gave for this particular book. So we've got quantitative data, and then also there's qualitative data that I can reference. And so I'll use this information myself. I know this influences me, and I can see this is a nice example of how data influences my behavior. I think another great example would be, for example, if you have a Fitbit, that data, the idea is that you're using that data and that information is influencing you. And actually there's a whole field called persuasive technology where people are studying just this. It's an interdisciplinary field, and they're looking at how we can be influenced by our technologies in different ways. And I do want to make sure to point out that this organization, this area, if you look in the bottom left corner, you see that they're talking about having a research field that's aimed at changing people's attitudes or behaviors through persuasion and social influence, but not through coercion, not through deception. So I want to make sure to point that out. We're not trying to manipulate people into doing things they don't want to do. What we're doing here is we're saying, if you're interested in supporting this topic or supporting this goal, that we can then nudge people in that direction, give them some guidance about how they can change their behavior in line with what they already want to do. So the Persuasive Technology Conference, that's in Canada next year in April. I plan on going. Maybe some of you also might be interested in this topic and interested in attending as well. If you are, let me know. I'd love to see everybody there. Just wanted to point out the scope for the conference next year is making a difference. That's exactly what we're talking about here today, doing good with data, and lots of different domains that persuasive technology can be applied to. So interested in helping people to do more environmentally sustainable behaviors, healthier behaviors, again, encouraging things that they already want to do and using technology for those purposes. And when I found out about this Persuasive Technology conference, I wondered, were they looking at data visualization as a topic? Was that part of the conversation? And I was happy to see that, yes, it is. There it is. Visualization is on the list of different technologies. So like I said, I plan on going to this. I'm excited about this. It looks like maybe the conversation has started. There's not a lot on this topic yet, but I think that there's a lot of possibilities here. So yeah, coming back to that blog post, what this was about were there were some managers of a company that were trying to get their staff to use less energy in the buildings at the workplace. And they had tried for a number of years to get people to change their behaviors, consume less energy, and ultimately do good for the planet. And they just were having not a lot of luck, so they wanted to attempt maybe a different tactic. And so they paired up with another company called Lucid. And what Lucid did is it was able to take all the data, energy data from the building and display it in a dashboard. Excuse me. So this is a nice example of what Lucid would put together. And so it's showing the different energy usage. You can see, if you look closely, it changes on the weekends. You can see those 2 days during the week that there's less energy used when it's not during a work day. You can see that more energy is used during the normal work business hours as compared to outside of those hours. And so what this company did was they were able to display that data. They set up dashboards in the lobby, and they had 2 different floors that they were using in the building, and they set up a competition. Actually, they told their staff, we're going to have a competition. We're going to see which floor can use less energy over the next month. So they had their baseline measures, and then they said whichever floor uses less energy over the next month, everybody on that floor will be able to get cupcakes. So that was their motivation. And then, like I said, they put the dashboards up in the lobby and then just sat back and saw what happened over the next month. So they were able to see over the course of that month that there was a 20% reduction in energy usage for the floor that had the best lowering of energy, and it was a 12% drop in energy usage for the other floor. And so based on these results, they reported in the post that experts estimate, it's possible for all of us to potentially reduce our energy usage by as much as 20% if we're just aware of this data and the data is made visible. But there's another important point here that I want to make. That's not all. You can't just give people data and say, all right, take it as you will and do whatever you need with it. You have to be very specific with people about how can they change those numbers if that's what they're interested in. So making the data actionable as well. So what do I mean by that? What they did when they were asking people to use less energy is they said, we're going to show you your energy usage, and actually here's some ways that you can reduce their energy. So that was an important point too. They told people, think about changing your thermostat settings. Think about turning off lights when you leave a room if you're not using it. If you're not using the conference room, just turn off those lights. Turn off your lights when you're not in your office, when you're out to lunch. Maybe think about using a laptop instead of a desktop because that uses less energy. Or don't turn on lights, just use the natural lights that you have that come in through the windows. So that was letting folks know, here's how you can actually act to change this behavior. And it wasn't anything major. It didn't take a lot of effort. It was just small little steps that they could take on a regular basis. So when I look at the data visualizations in our community, I see that there are some examples, some great examples of folks in our community doing just that, what I call having a call to action on a data viz. So Michael Mixon is one of those people, and this is a beautiful visualization he made for Viz for Social Good. And so here he is displaying the data about the issue, the problem, and how the African Youth Mentorship Network can help to solve that problem. And so it's compelling, it's engaging, and then there it is at the bottom, there's that call to action, just a small suggestion, just a nudge. If somebody's interested, let them know what they can do. They can donate, they can find out more information about becoming a volunteer, becoming a mentor. Put it right there on the data visualization so that it's easy for them to make that step if they're interested in doing so. And there's a little side note that I wanted to point out. I got a chance to meet Michael at the Tableau conference when I was there in October. And so we were just chatting about, you know, what we do and who we are. And I had told him that I'm a social psychologist by training and that I had read The Social Animal, and that was really the book that made me become a social psychologist. And the author's name is Elliot Aronson. And he said, "Oh, Aronson, did he teach at UC Santa Cruz?" And I said, "Yeah, I think that sounds right." He said, "Oh, you know what? I took his social psychology class." So Michael Mixon took the class with who I consider to be the master of social psychology. And so that was just really kind of funny to find out, maybe not surprising that Michael Mixon knows to include a call to action on a data viz, because that's, you know, kind of social psychology 101. Another nice example of somebody that includes call to action on their data viz is Johnny Walker. He makes beautiful visualizations about animals that he's very passionate about. And these are animals often that are in need, that they have issues that, that they're about to be lost forever, on the brink of extinction. And so what Johnny Walker will do on various occasions is he will include, again, just a small nudge, just letting folks know if this is something that interests you, if you want to contribute to this cause, here you go, here's the link, please donate. So that's just another nice example. And I've got one more for you. That was done by me. So I do practice what I preach. This was a data visualization that I made for Makeover Monday, and this particular topic was about how much water it takes to produce different types of food. And so based on the data, it was really pretty clear that having animal-based foods, that requires a lot more water to produce. And so kind of my bottom line takeaway was we should be eating more plants and less meat. And then there it is at the bottom. If people are interested, if this is something that they want to consider, let them know how they can do that, so they can learn a little bit more about this idea at meatlessmonday.com. They can maybe consider not eating meat on Monday. You know, I'm not telling them become a vegan for the rest of your life. I'm saying, here's a little information. Here's a baby step. If you wanted to go in that direction, I can show you how. And I am happy to say that this particular visualization was selected as one of the favorites for that week for Makeover Monday. And in the write-up, the review of the visualizations that week, Eva Marie made a point of saying that this visualization links to meatlessmonday.com, adds a resource for people to take action, because that's unique, that's different. We're not doing that on a regular basis. And so when people actually say, here's the data, here's what you can do with it, you know, people take notice. And so it was a really nice, you know, surprise. That was really nice to have Eva Marie point that out, that she appreciated that link to take action. So like I said, when I look and I try to find whether people have actually done research on this topic, you know, are they seeing a direct connection between being able to display information in a data visualization and be able to influence behavior? That research really doesn't exist. And I am a researcher by training, so that's what I look for. What I'm able to find instead, it's close. It's research looking at attitude change, not behavior change, and that is different. But this is a study that was done back, it was published in 2014 by Enrico Bertini and some of his colleagues on the persuasive power of data visualization. So you can see again in the abstract they describe, you know, not much research has been done to examine the effects of data visualization in influencing others. And really their main question here with their research study is, does the graphical presentation of data make a message more persuasive? So just a little kind of overview of what they did. they presented people with different data, different arguments, and they did ask them their attitudes before showing them the graphical presentation of data. So they would ask, for example, to what extent do you agree that video games do not lead to youth violence? And so they asked their attitude before they showed the data, and then they asked that same question after they showed the data. And for some people, I just want to point out, for some people, their attitude about this particular topic is already strong. They already have a strong belief in some direction. So there might be some of you out there that think, well, yeah, I believe strongly that video games do not lead to youth violence. I'm already in agreement with that. And some of you might be thinking, you know what, based on what I've heard, based on what I know, I believe that video games do lead to youth violence, and I have a strong opinion that way. And there might be some of you that think, well, I've never really thought about it. Do video games lead to youth violence? I don't know. What does the data say? And what the researchers found is that for those people that are neutral, that didn't already have a strong attitude one direction or another, if you show people who are already neutral, if you show them a chart of the data that's in support of that claim versus a table of data, that the chart will be more influential and it will be more persuasive and change their attitude in the direction of the claim. So again, we can find in some circumstances, in some situations, that a chart is more persuasive than just a table of data, and that chart's data visualizations can result in attitude change. Again, this is not measuring behavior change, but I'll take it. So it's attitude change at something, we're getting there. A couple of other points I wanted to make, again, just kind of thinking about and what I see out there in the world in the field of data visualization. Something else that I came across that I thought was interesting is that earlier this year, Stephen Few wrote up a data visualization effectiveness profile. And so in this profile, what he's describing is those dimensions that he believes should be measured as an indication of data visualization effectiveness. So for example, one set of dimensions is all about being informative. So a data visualization is more informative if it's useful, if it has all of the relevant data, if it's accurate data, if you can easily if it's easy to understand, if you can easily look at it and understand what it's trying to tell you. Another, I think, interesting point, so this is all about how do we think about data, right? How does it affect our perceptions, our thoughts, our beliefs? There's a lot about data visualization research on that area that's really speaking to, what do we perceive when we look at this? How there's differences between perceptions of data when it's in a pie chart versus a bar chart, for example. Something that surprised me to see was that Stephen Few was also interested in the emotive piece. So recognizing that a data visualization is more effective if it's actually engaging the viewer and is beautiful and as relating to the emotion. So how does the data visualization make you feel? That's what he's saying here. That if it makes you feel good, pleasant emotions, draws you in, is engaging to you, that makes for a more effective data visualization. What's missing, I think, I would argue, in Stephen Few's profile is, we could call it reactive. What about that reactive piece of how data visualization can cause some type of action, some type of behavior change? So, like I said, this doesn't seem to be part of the conversation right now, and I think it could be. I think we're missing opportunities to influence behavior when we forget about that piece. And then the good news is we can reference other people's models of behavior change in order to kind of speak to and think about how we can incorporate these ideas. And so BJ Fogg is one researcher. He's been doing research on behavior change for many, many years. So his model states that a behavior or behavior change is the result of a couple of different factors. So one, whether a behavior is going to happen depends on how motivated the person is. They could have low or medium or high motivation to engage in the behavior. Another factor would be the person's ability to engage in the behavior. So some behaviors are really challenging to do. They take a lot of time, a lot of effort. Some behaviors are very easy. They take very little time, very little effort. And then finally, of course, the piece that I'm most interested in, the trigger. So you can call this by a couple of different names. Is it a prompt? Is it a call to action? BJ Fogg is calling it a trigger right now. I happened to talk to him on the phone because I just wanted to talk to him because I think it's an interesting topic. And he said he might be changing this word to prompt in the future, in the near future. But whatever you want to call it, it is that signal that we are presenting to people about the behavior change and what is the possibility. So just to wrap up, I want to point out to you, I think what we do a lot of times with data visualization is we try to engage the viewer and we try to nudge that motivation piece. So we're saying we have a really compelling argument here, really important information. There's this injustice in the world that needs to be corrected. There's this need that we need to support. And BJ Fogg would say, can you actually influence motivation? Maybe, but it's fleeting and it's tricky because motivation depends on so many things. How much time the person has to engage with the visualization, whether it relates to them, do they find it to be important at all? They have other things going on. And so that's really not what we can rely on. We don't want to forget about it. We don't want to create visualizations that are not engaging, but we can't rely on motivation alone. Do we have the possibility to influence the ability? Yes. Again, what this is saying is different behaviors are easier or more difficult to do. And so this is what I've been saying throughout this presentation. Let's make it easy, just a nudge, just a small behavior. You don't have to donate $100. Maybe just $1 would help, or just learn more. Just what's the small step? And maybe on a visualization, you could give a couple of different options that range in difficulty, at least including the easiest option of just the one that takes the least amount of time, the least amount of effort, and that will be more likely to result in behavior change. And again, of course, can you influence whether there's a trigger or not? Sure you can. Yes, of course you can. That's what we sometimes fail to do. And I'm not saying every single data set is going to have a call to action that makes sense. There's a lot of cases where it may not, but I'm saying in those sets of data, in those visualizations where there is actually something that comes to mind that we could tell people to do, to react to be able to, again, help to change what's happening in the world, let's just go ahead and make it easy for them. Let them know what that could be if they're interested in doing it. So I say, yes, let's just help it exist, and then by doing that, we can do a little bit more good with data. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. We have a question from Kathy Bledsoe, who asked, this may be more of a psychology question than a data viz question, but here we go. Sure. I've heard that for people with existing strong views on a topic, showing them data that conflicts with their existing views can actually make them dig their heels in and believe in their existing views more strongly. Any tips for data viz to inform people on highly charged topics such as gun control?
Yeah.
Without driving away.
Right. No, that's exactly right. Yeah. And that goes along with what Enrico Bertini was finding with his data, exactly, where they were really only able to change the attitude if people were starting from a neutral place. It's true. It's really difficult to get people to change their attitudes, in opposition to what they already believe, because people want to believe they're right. And people, by admitting that they were wrong in their attitudes, that's just really difficult for us. What I've read about in the field of social psychology, if you want to change attitudes, is what you actually have to get people to do is you have to ask them, well, why do you think maybe the other case might be true? And ask them to come up with arguments in support of the other side. And by doing that, that helps them to just kind of consider the other side of it. But no, you can't just say, this is why you were wrong, this is why this is right. You actually have to get them to, if they're willing to, which takes time and effort. It's not easy. The bottom line is it's not easy. People are tricky.
So, Alicia, maybe on a follow up to that, then would you suggest doing something more like an exploratory visualization and perhaps with a call to action, a nudge? But, if they can, if you're not leading them to what your position is, but giving them the opportunity to identify the facts and gently lead them, I mean, do you think that that might work? I'm interested
That
to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good possibility if people are willing to take that time. Certainly it's better than getting a reactive response, which is what we're going to get when we're trying to, what looks like to the person to be pushing certain beliefs. So yeah, I think the idea of somebody being able to explore more freely and come up with their own conclusions, yes, if that's something that they're interested in. The problem is sometimes people will explore and there's confirmation bias, so whatever they see, they change their perceptions of what they see to be in line with what they already believe. So yeah, I agree that we want to try to reduce reactance if we can. But like I said, it's people, it's subjective. A lot of things are really subjective for folks.
Okay, the next question we have is, what is your thought process to create the visualization that best represents your objectives or business needs? Whether you want to influence others or you want to improve your insights about the business, how do you determine what visualization works better?
So I think a lot of people would say, it really depends on your audience, and that's kind of the bottom line. So what do they need, and what would best suit their needs? That's really what it comes back to. So are they comfortable? Are they literate? There's a lot of talk about data literacy. What are they able to process and understand? And what are they most interested in? So that's really where I think we need to go back to. We need to develop a visualization, ask a lot of questions beforehand, and then get feedback. Certainly, is this working for them? Are they able to use that information? So I think it just really depends on who you're trying to show it to. And that's not always possible. A lot of times when we share visualizations in the wild and create something, I think for ourselves, we have to just consider, well, who do I want my audience to be today, or who am I going to try to target? And maybe kind of go from there and make some decisions based on a persona perhaps that we're coming up with.